Welcome back to another episode of the Checkerboard Chat. I'm Josh Lane, joined as always by Ethan Stone and Andrew Peters today. Riley, not with us today. Hope he's doing well. Sleeping in, I guess, after the big game. Or we are recording this Monday morning after the Super Bowl, biggest sporting event of the year. I think it was a pretty good night overall. I think from what I've seen and heard, kind of everybody agrees that it was just a good night, good game, everything. So just to talk about the Super Bowl because we can. What are your thoughts on that? On an enjoyable kind of football?
I would say the Coinbase commercial was best. I don't
That's
know
what
what
I
you
was
guys
thinking,
think with the little.
So simple,
Yeah.
but effective.
Did you actually scan the barcode?
My brother did.
Yeah, I scanned.
He was having
Scan it?
such a hard time.
And no one in my family understood what was happening. I was like, wait a minute. And
Yeah.
I had like the little Windows startup noise, and I was like, let's see what's happening here. And then I saw it, and I was like, okay, we're Xing off of this and
I
going
was-
to Twitter and seeing what they say about it.
I was kind of hoping it would be like something better than Coinbase. So.
I was too. I was hoping it would be like me getting rickrolled or something.
Yeah.
But as far as the actual game goes, man, it was awesome. Lived up to the expectations. You know, the NFL postseason has been really, satisfying so far this season. It ended in a good way. A little abrupt, in my opinion. I would have liked to see Burrow kind of go to the very end there, but hey, it is what it is. Like, I can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah,
when it comes
pretty
down to it.
fitting that Aaron Donald, long-time Ram, got the game-sealing play there on 4th and 1 or whatever it was.
Yeah, and you got the correct way to build a super team, I guess, if you're the Rams, because
Right.
you got Matt Stafford, a guy that comes from Detroit that has been on an awful team his whole life. You got OBJ, who people were kind of preying on his downfall, saying he's washed and stuff like that. When
Still
this
pretty talented.
this is a bad night for Baker Mayfield. Bad night to be Baker Mayfield. But you got Aaron Donald. He's been with the team, and he finally got his thing. Von Miller comes in, free agency, and he shines as he usually does. Kind of opened that lane up for Aaron Donald at the end. But you just got to hand it to him. I mean, they were the best team when it comes down to it. The Rams were just the best team, and I guess I'd give a shout out to T. Higgins, Oak Ridge boy.
Right.
Would have been the MVP if the Bengals had won it, but best team won.
Yeah. I think this was the best. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think this was the best Super Bowl experience in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
From like the game, halftime show, commercials. It was just. It felt. I don't know. It felt really good. It's nice not disliking either team, so you can you don't really care what the outcome is. And yeah, I agree. I wish Joe Burrow would have made a run there at the end. That kind of would have been the icing on the cake. But yeah, great game, great experience.
What was you guys' favorite Super Bowl of the past recent while in your lifetime? Because that was one of the top ones for me too.
That was a good one.
I liked the Ravens 49ers one a while ago. That was a good one. Not sure about my favorite. Yeah, the one the power went out. That one was really memorable. And I mean, my favorite. Well, I'll go to you. What do you think?
I think I would say the Eagles Patriots.
That was a good one. That was a really good one.
The Eagles were on a big run. Nick Foles obviously worked on the Patriots.
I would say the Broncos. Broncos Panthers, because I think that was the last time, or one of the first times I had any kind of stake in a Super Bowl, just because of Peyton Manning, obviously. So, and he was retiring and everything. That was just an awesome game.
Yeah, I know the Bengals and Rams. As far as the game goes, I think I'll agree with you, Andrew. Like, just the atmosphere of the game was awesome. But as far as the game goes, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was like an 80 out of 100. I'd say it was it wasn't bad by any means, but it was still one of my favorite. In the recent memory, I'd say my favorite that I remember in my lifetime was Arizona and Pittsburgh, 2009, 10, whenever that was. That was an awesome Super Bowl. Kind of going back and forth. You got Larry Fitzgerald. You got, Big Ben coming down, drive to Randall L at the very end. That's just, they kind of stick with you, I guess. And, Super Bowl's the biggest sports day of the year when it comes down to it. And it's just something you kind of remember, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Stafford goes on that game-winning drive there at the end. I think everybody's going to remember that. And Cooper Kupp getting open like he did all year.
How about Cooper Kupp, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the greatest receiving year of all time.
It's got to be up there.
He said, I saw the graphic. I don't remember all of this stuff, but he said I don't know how many records. I mean, he won the Triple Crown, most catches in the postseason, all this stuff, Super Bowl MVP.
And halfway through the game, you're like, hey, where's Cooper Kupp?
Yeah.
Because and what happened to Cooper Kupp is Odell Beckham got injured, and he got double teamed the entire. He just got schemed out of the game pretty much, and he still made the game-winning play when it came down to it. He cooks Eli Apple, and one-on-one, I'm not sure exactly what the Bengals were thinking there.
Yeah.
Let's get our guy that is known for being burnt toast in this situation and put him on a guy having one of the best seasons of all time, genuinely.
Yeah. T. Higgins gonna thank Eli Apple for not having the Super Bowl MVP. So he shouted out Oak Ridge High School.
Yeah, that was
cool.
Before the game, so almost Vol T. Higgins.
Almost fall.
Yeah.
That one hurts. Kind of like Trevor Lawrence. How many other guys can we name here?
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey's from Nashville. I'm not
you
sure.
make an argument for Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
A lot of guys.
Yeah. Well, let's not get down into that rabbit hole too much.
We
We could be there for
episode.
Yeah, right.
Talking about almost Vols.
Maybe we should sometime. But let's start with the men's basketball team. They kept rolling. They were pushing P all week. They had good vibes around the team. Offense is clicking, looking well. Although the week started off and we recorded the last episode, and then later that day was when the news broke that Olivier Cromwell was out for the year, had that ankle injury. So that obviously was a big hurt on Tennessee's front court. Rick Barnes went to Brandon Huntley Hatfield. In the meantime, he started the last 2 games. Started hot. He scored the first points in each game, and then that was it. Fell off from there. John Fulkerson had a nice night against Vanderbilt. But Tennessee's still kind of looking for answers there in the front court, I would say. No one's really stepped up and been consistent all year. That's been outside of Conway, and he was coming around right before he went down. So I guess, Ethan, we'll start with you. What was your biggest takeaways from Tennessee's week?
Yeah, I'd say the Brandon Huntley Hatfield being the starter thing is really interesting because not only was Barnes the one that wheeled him out there, it was players like Vescovi, like James, coming up to him and saying, hey, this guy needs to be the starter. And, you can rate his play however you want, but when it comes down to it, he started hot. And I don't care if he's playing 4 minutes. That's got to give you a little bit of a spark when your guy, freshman dude's coming off the bench, scoring immediately and being like, hey, I'm not afraid when it comes down to it.
I guess it's better than two turnovers to start the game.
Yeah, so. You're not wrong. And, it's just setting the game in the right direction, I feel like. And I don't know, to see Huntley Hatfield get better, I guess, as it goes along. And let's be honest, he hasn't been great. He hasn't been fantastic in the starting role. He's not stepping up, I guess, for Olivier Conway. He's not the new dude, but you got him. You got Jonas Idu, who's looked fair off the bench as well as of right now. I thought he was not going to be great at all, but he's out there legitimately contributing in his minutes. Not very many of them, but he's contributing. And I guess it's just really showing how far Barnes can go. Hey, it's not over. The season's not over. They've won 2 in a row now without one of their best front court presences. They've got options they can turn to.
Yeah, I think that at this point in the season, you can't be mad about Huntley Hatfield starting because, this is a time where you're figuring things out, especially, one of your best big men goes down. You should look for answers like you said, and if Huntley Hatfield's the answer, we're going to find out in the next couple of games, I guess. But yeah, I think it's kind of comparable to the Lady Vols starting Tess Darby. She doesn't necessarily get a ton of minutes, but she comes in, does her job for a little bit, and then goes out and, somebody else comes back in for her place. And I think that's kind of what Huntley Hatfield could be because, Fulkerson can provide some spark off the bench. We don't know if he'll be back in the starting lineup anytime this season, but if he's not, he's, a great bench presence to have, a great spark to have off the bench. So, yeah, I think at this point in the season, you should try different things. Maybe not on Tuesday against Kentucky, but you may just want to try the best thing there. But, experiment a little bit, figure out what's going to work best in the postseason.
Well, it's interesting you said that's the best, talking about their best lineup and trying something different. When Tennessee's gone to their four-guard lineup, their offense has been very good. When they're starting, I guess, now I'm blanking now, but when they have, Rose at the 5 or someone, and they got 4 guards, and maybe James is there.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Powell and Zakayan who's come off the bench. That, I don't know, that lineup has been pretty good over the last week. I mean, now that Tennessee's front court has got some depth issues, we just talked about. Do you think that maybe Rick Barnes goes to that 4-guard lineup, or just let's just keep trying out something in the front court.
I mean, I think short term, you gotta go 4 guard, because it's not even just the past couple of weeks. That's been all season. All season with James at the 4 and just Zakai, Kennedy. You got Justin Powell. Fill in whoever you want. Victor Bailey, put him at the 3. The offense is just humming with guys like Kennedy Chandler, with guys like Zakai Ziegler running the show, because James is just allowed to do whatever he wants to do pretty much. He doesn't have any specific role at the 4 because he doesn't have the height advantage anyway when it comes down, almost always. Mm-hmm. So when he's just allowed to kind of roam around and be as good as he is, and like, I guess, unleashed as good as he can be, I mean, this team is borderline unstoppable on offense. They're so good offensively. And then you put guys like Fulkerson and Euros on the floor at the same time, and it just sputters to a halt because they know how to guard them better. Like Fulky, you know, you can say what you want about him, but he's kind of one-dimensional right now. He only is successful at the moment when he's off the dribble. If you just throw him the ball in the post, they just don't give him an inch, and he can't do anything about it. And Euros is, you know, kind of the same way when it comes down to it. He's more of a 5, so that's a little different. But Tennessee's offense has always worked better when you have Josiah James at the 4 running the show, and when you have Kennedy and Zakai. Just let them do what they do offensively. And so moving forward, if you want to start seeing success at the end of the season, just keep running that as much as you can. Run that, you know, barring foul trouble, just keep running that. But when you get in the postseason against a guy like Kofi Coburn, against Zach Edey in the postseason, you're going to have serious trouble because, you know, that's why Barnes is still running those 2 forward, 2 big lineups, is because eventually you're going to need it. Like, small ball is not going to work against Purdue. It's just not. And even if they don't have a great defense, small ball is not going to work against Illinois. It's just not. And I think Barnes realizes that. He's like, hey, we're in it for the long run right now. We've got to get some people going. Like, Jonas has got to get going. Brandon's got to get going. Fulky's got to get back to shape, because otherwise you're just going to lose in the second round. You know, even if you finish strong.
I think it's interesting you mentioned foul trouble, because even if they want to go to a 4-guard lineup, and that's something Rick Barnes wants to do, when Kenny Chandler and Santiago Vescovi both have 2 fouls in the first half, well, kind of, you know, you can't do that. Force hand, someone's got to step up in the front court. So I don't know. That's something Vescovi's been doing all year. He's just playing aggressive in the first half. Could just maybe tone it back a little bit and realize, all right, maybe one steal or one potential steal is not worth it right now this early in the game, when I could be on my second foul and be on the bench for the rest of the first half. He did the same thing in the second half too. And, you know, when Vanderbilt was on that big run, they're coming back. Vescovi and Chandler are on the bench. As soon as they come back in, Chandler 6 straight points. There's a game. So, I mean, foul trouble, that's been something it's been a problem all year for Vescovi. That's something they're going to have to clean up, though, especially while the front court's thin as it is, and if this 4-guard lineup is something that Barnes actually wants to go to.
Yeah, I think this team, something different about this UT team compared to the last couple of years, I don't think there's one perfect lineup that you can just put in every game that's going to do the same thing. You know, you might want to, if you're playing Kentucky, who's got an outstanding big man, you know, move to the couple of forwards, couple of big guys in there, and then, you know, play a team like Arkansas or I don't know, Alabama, and you move back to that 4-guard lineup. And I think Rick Barnes and, you know, the leaders on this team are just going to have to make adjustments as they go, and, you know, depending on who they play, because that 4-guard lineup provides a lot of offense, but you just kind of, you know, with any small ball lineup, you sacrifice a little bit on defense. So I think this team will just have to make adjustments as they go and be okay with being flexible with the lineups.
Yeah, I mean, especially like a team against Vanderbilt that's going to shine that 4-guard lineup, because they just don't have a dominant big. Like Liam Robbins the other day, I'm sure he's great at basketball, but Josiah was kind of cooking him the entire time. Fulky was kind of cooking him the entire time. And, you know, I'll just go back to what I was saying earlier. Oscar Tshiebwe is not Liam Robbins. Oscar Tshiebwe is probably one of the best players in college basketball this season. Dominant rebounder. You know, James is a dominant rebounder too, but Tshiebwe's got like a 3 or 4 inch height advantage on him when it comes down to it. So you got guys like Tshiebwe coming up. I don't know. We're gonna see if this is actually gonna work moving forward.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get into Kentucky in a minute, but one interesting point: do you just run the 4-guard lineup against Kentucky because Tshiebwe's gonna dominate no matter what, and just let him dominate? You know, Josiah James and Uros Plavic and get some offense.
It's honestly fair because, you know, we obviously do not know the team as well as Barnes does, but from an outside perspective, I would trust James on. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but I would trust James on Sheboy more than I would trust Folky or Euros right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 100% serious.
I mean,
at least to draw fouls. You know, he's not going to guard him, to be totally honest. Because, like I said earlier, he's a big man.
Yeah,
like, you know, he's awkward. He's Oscar Sheboy. He's going to beat anybody. I would trust James to just stand there and maybe, I don't know, draw a couple fouls, draw something, because he's so smart. He's savvy enough, I feel like, and I've been saying it for a while. I don't want to say I'm right, but I'm right. James is the best player on this team. I don't think it's close. And people have been like, you know, saying, oh, he can't shoot the basketball. It's like, no, he can. Yeah. He just is in a slump right now. And he's coming out of it because he's scoring like 16 points a game or something like that. And, you know, I don't want this to just be the Ethan Stone, Josiah Jordan James fanfare. But when it comes down to it, he's the guy you got to build this team around right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw what happened a month ago when they tried Eros and John Fulkerson on Sheboy in Kentucky. That didn't work.
It did not work.
I mean, it's funny. We were just talking about Brandon Huntley Hatfield. He had the best game that day of anyone in Tennessee's front court, and now here he is. So Tennessee's kind of looking for answers there. But since that game a month ago, they've only won 7 straight in the SEC. I believe that was their last loss in the conference. So they've gotten hot. I mean, what can you tell us a little bit about Kentucky, Ethan? Besides Sheboy, obviously they're a good team. I know you said you think they're the national champions right now.
Yeah, I do. I think Kentucky's. I'm not sure about the best team in the nation right now. I'd give that to probably Gonzaga, but they're the team that is most built to win a national championship. They got John Calipari, who does not lose in the postseason. I mean, he took 8 seed Kentucky just a while ago all the way to the national championship game, and they've won, 6 straight. They have looked good while doing it. We've already mentioned Oscar Sheboy, who's probably the best player in the country. They've got a catch-and-shoot guy in Kellen Grady. They've got Ty Washington, who just kind of went down with an injury. I'm not sure what his status is right now, but regardless, fantastic player in Ty Washington. He probably won't be playing against Tennessee, but my bet is he's going to be healthy to make a Final Four run. They've just got all the pieces, and they got really good freshmen. They've got experience. They've got the best player in the nation, and they've got a 60% knockdown shooter in Kellen Grady when he's in the corner. It feels like he doesn't miss when he's in the corner. I don't think he did against Tennessee. He might have went 5 for 5. I don't know. I'm kind of spitballing here, but they're very good. Yeah. And so to beat them, it's going to take a lot. Now, Tennessee has won 14 in a row at Thompson-Boling Arena, so you can't count, because they're a different team at TBA, so you can't count them out. They beat Arizona, who's another Final Four contender, but Kentucky's going to be hard. It's going to. I mean, let's just face it here. They're going to be really difficult, and you got to go into it with a game plan, because, like you said earlier, Josh, you're not going to beat them with Fulkerson and Euros, just kind of hoping to do what they couldn't do last time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting you bring up the Thompson-Boling Arena aspect of it, because I believe that Tennessee is favored. It's like 56% or something. That's insane to me. I know Tennessee's great at home. I guess I'll believe it when I see it, but Kentucky's just that good to where I doubt even Tennessee at home right now. But obviously it's a big matchup. 9 p.m. prime time. I hate 9 p.m. games.
Hate
That's
9 p.m. tips. Abolish 9 p.m. tips.
But it's going to be a huge game, obviously. And I think it might have been Rick Barnes the other night. I can't remember who exactly said it, but the question basically, you remember what happened at Kentucky a month ago? Like this should be a revenge game, but maybe it was Zakai.
Zakai did say something about it.
Yeah,
I think
it's not a revenge game. We're just treating this any other game.
It was definitely Zakai. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the mindset they have to have? I mean, obviously it's a big game, but if you take it, put too much pressure on it.
Barnes has said all season about Zakai, actually. He said he's got a short memory. And that's what the rest of Tennessee has to have. You got to come in and just be like, who are these guys? We never played them before. And that's really what you have to do. You have to just walk in there and say, we're going to beat anybody in the nation right now. Kind of like Kentucky did last time at Rowe. They weren't losing that game to anybody in the nation, and much less Tennessee, because they were just shooting so well. So that's what Tennessee's got to do. They're going to just be like, hey, we're not losing this game. We're going to shoot 80% from the field, and we're going to win. And I don't know. I was going to say something. I mean, Kentucky, let's talk about playing in visiting arenas right now. They go to Kansas, to Fog Allen, one of the hardest places to play in the nation, and just decimate them. They made them look like a high school team. And, Kansas, they're a Final Four contender as well. So I mean, Kentucky, they're a wagon right now. And I don't think they're going to be scared about going in a place like Thompson-Boling if they're not scared about going to Fog Allen.
Yeah, I think it's nice to romanticize the fact that teams play better at home. And Tennessee does play better at home. There's no doubt about that. But I think that helps you in a game where you're pretty evenly matched and it could go either way. I don't think this is a game like that. Kentucky's not a team that's going to lose because a team plays a little bit better at home. I mean, when you're talking about a national championship contender versus maybe a 5 seed in the tournament, that's not a game that's going to fare one way because the crowd was loud in Tennessee's favor. So I don't know. I think it's fun to talk about Tennessee being good at home, and this win streak is fun, but I think it comes to an end against Kentucky, honestly.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, if you're thinking with that mindset, ask Kansas fans. Because that's what they thought too, and they got destroyed.
Yeah, I would like to see. Thompson-Boling gets loud. There's no doubt about that, but Kansas is, I think it's a little bit different than Thompson-Boling.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that Arizona game, Josh, that was probably the loudest I've ever heard Thompson-Boling. And I've only covered Tennessee this season. I've been to a couple games, obviously. That's the loudest I've ever heard it, is Tennessee when they beat Arizona. That Kennedy-Chandler steal kind of at the very end when they fouled him, I was like, it sounded like a train horn in my ear. It was insane.
I wasn't there for that game. I was sick. Terrible timing on my part. It really was. But I was going to say, I thought that when Kennedy was on that run by himself, I think that might have been the loudest that I have heard. Obviously, I missed the biggest game of the year at Thompson-Boling, but when he scored 6 straight points there, even against Vandy, and it's not even a sold-out crowd, they were loving that. So
yeah, I thought the same thing, weirdly enough. When that happened, I was like, that could fight with it, because it was very loud. And I mean, like we've said before, Thompson-Boling Arena, it's not exactly like, as prestigious as like the Palestra or Fog Allen or anything like that, but it can get loud. It can get plenty loud. It's like the 4th largest venue in the nation, which is kind of insane, to be honest, because Tennessee's not exactly the college basketball royalty, I guess. But no, it can get loud.
Yeah. So I'm sure it'll be loud Tuesday night. Obviously, Tennessee, Kentucky, we're building it up. The players are not, or at least that'll be the goal for them if they want to win. Is not build them up. But we'll have coverage at that utwbeacon.com. So check that out. I'm thinking about it, we got a big paper coming out, spring sports paper. That'll be out Wednesday. So be sure to grab that, from the orange bin whenever you see it on campus. Now let's talk about the Lady Vols now. A week ago, they were reeling, had lost 3 out of 4, coming off a loss at Florida, a loss at UConn. Not really close in either of those games. Now they're playing Missouri and Vanderbilt, 2 maybe okay, not great teams though, but they did what they needed to, took care of business, got 2 wins. I mean, that's really all you can ask for at this point after a stretch like that. So, Andrew, our women's basketball beat writer, what was your biggest takeaways from the Lady Vols this week?
Yeah, I think the wins last week were just something they kind of just needed. They've been searching for answers, obviously, since Keane Green went out, had a really tough week. And they kind of came home and had 2 comfortable wins, which I think is kind of all you could ask for from them at this point in the season. They made some adjustments, and Ray Burrell had a great game. Jordan Horston seemed to be back to her normal self. It just looked like more of the Lady Vol team that we're kind of used to seeing. So I think those wins were much needed at this point in the season. And then heading into Alabama this week, I think that will kind of be the test for if they're truly kind of back to the point they were before, Keane Green went out. And then obviously you've got South Carolina on Sunday, which probably is a loss. But, the wins were good. You can't really say much other than that. It wasn't what am I trying to say? It wasn't like neither of them were spectacular blowouts, but they were comfortable wins. And yeah, they did what they needed to do. I think if you're Kelly Harper, all you can ask for from your team is just do it again against Alabama and then try to hang in there against South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the women's game yesterday, giving South Carolina updates, and they were up by like 25 points, in the first quarter and at halftime. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about South Carolina a little bit later in that game, but that's gonna be a challenge for them. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Tamara Key. We've been giving her a hard time, but frankly, she's kind of earned it over the last couple of days. Games really stepped back in production, not getting many blocks. Although, well, against, what was this, Missouri, 7 blocks. Where's she here? But again, no blocks against Vandy yesterday. So still kind of inconsistent, not scoring much. Is it just a game plan by the opponents to kind of work around her, or again the mental thing that we were talking about last week?
I think it's still that mental thing because yesterday Vandy, they didn't have anybody really her size that could compete with her. She's getting some touches, she's not finishing. The offensive production isn't really there. I will say Kelly Harper praised her yesterday just for, even if she's not getting that offensive production, she's still just a force down there, and teams have to double team her, and that creates looks. She actually had some really good passes yesterday, I will say. I don't know how many assists she ended up with, but she had some really good looks yesterday. So I think you just got to get over that mental block. A player that's as good as she is and as experienced as she is, she can't let something as a tweaked ankle a few weeks ago slow her down this much. And she's got to be more aggressive. She's not going for shots as much as she was, when she had that 10-block game against Texas. So you don't count the season out for Tamara Key. She's obviously a great player and is capable of getting back to that. I think it's just she's got to get over that mental hurdle at this point.
She hurt her ankle a couple weeks ago, is that right?
Yeah, it was. I can't remember which game it was. Maybe 3 weeks ago. It might have been Auburn actually, but yeah, she went down with a hurt ankle, missed. I believe she missed one game, and she hasn't shown any sign of it hurting recently.
Okay.
Just kind of looking a little bit slow, not chasing down shots like she normally would. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about Ray Burrell? What have you seen from her over the last week? It looks like still not starting, but coming off the bench, scored in double figures both times. She kind of getting back to form.
Yeah,
to
I
where
think
she was a little year ago.
I think she's definitely getting back to her true form and the offensive player we've seen her be. I think at this point, she's looks like she could be a starting player and has been at some points in the season, but I think Kelly Harper really likes her coming off the bench and bringing in that spark. I think her teammates do too. So, when Jordan Horston starts to slow down, maybe halfway through the first quarter, you can bring in Ray Burrell and get some easy offense going, kind of like, maybe a Zakai Ziegler or somebody on the men's team. And Sarah Puckett as well. We can mention her in that category of players that can come off the bench and bring some spark. But, you think it's got to be tough for Ray Burrell being one of the best players on the team in the SEC even, and coming off the bench, but she's really embracing that role a lot. I think that says a lot about her as a player and her as a leader. So I think that's a good position for her to be in right now.
Yeah, I mean, if it's working, so I guess that was the thing early in the year when they were on that streak. Well, they're winning, so no need to start or no need to rush her. This week, Ladybugs on the road twice, as we mentioned. First, Alabama. That's a team that they should handle, but it might be a test, on the road. But they should be favored there. And then, of course, South Carolina, number 1 team in the country. That'll be a big game next Sunday. And I might be forgetting a game, but the Lady Vols have kind of struggled this year in the big games, right? They didn't beat Stanford. They didn't beat UConn. I guess Texas was maybe a big win for them. I don't remember, can't think of any other piece off the top of my head right now, but I mean, South Carolina's going to be by far their hardest game of the year, the most challenging one. And what do the Lady Vols need to do to have any sort of chance just to hang in there against South Carolina? I mean, they beat this team last year at home, so that was a year ago. So
yeah, I will say they had some good wins early in the season against South Florida, who was ranked at the time. I'm not sure if they still are, and then Georgia more recently. But yeah, Alabama, just to touch on that real quick, anytime you go on the road in the SEC, men's or women's, it's going to be a toss-up. They should win that game, but it's not a guarantee, so you can't let South Carolina, looking forward to South Carolina, get in the way of that game. But yeah, they go to Alabama on the road. If you win that game, that's a huge confidence booster, and then obviously head into South Carolina. I think the game plan here, you've got to get the offense going through Tamari Key and Jordan Horston. You know, we talked about that mental block that Tamari Key's dealing with right now. I think you can't really have a so-so game from her. You've got to have 100% from her if you want any kind of chance against South Carolina. Horston's got to be on. We've seen her, you know, kind of have some dicey games. Jordan Walk, pretty much for this game, every player has to be on their best game. And, you know, especially Horston, Walker, Key, and Burrell. Those are just your leaders on offense and on defense, and they've just got to have a great game. And then you've got to have players like Brooklyn Miles, Sarah Puckett, you know, these players who aren't necessarily going to have 15, 16 points, but just players that can contribute a lot on offense and on defense. This is the best team in the country. There's no doubt about that. Your team's been kind of dicey, kind of iffy recently, and you've got to be 100% locked into South Carolina if you want any kind of shot.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up Tamari Key because South Carolina has Aaliyah Boston at post 6'5", probably the best player in college in women's basketball this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess Tamari Key is their only answer. Would be Ladybugs' only shot there, and she's been struggling for last month. Maybe coming around a little bit this past week, but if they will have any chance of stopping Boston, it's Tamari Key, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's had some really tough matchups. I think specifically about the Texas game, but nothing like Aaliyah Boston. You know, she is just a dominant player, and I think the best you can hope to do is slow her down. And if there's one player in the SEC and maybe the country that can do that, it's Tamari Key. So yeah, that just goes back to she's really got to be on her game and just get over that mental block and treat this like she would any other matchup and you know, get blocker shots, deny her at the rim. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking ahead at their schedule, the Lady Vols after South Carolina, they have Mississippi State and LSU at home, and then it's the SEC tournament. So they're on the home stretch here. So, I mean, you think they could win 3 out of 4 games? That would be probably obviously winning all 4 would be the best, but 3 out of 4 is probably the most realistic. You know, all right, let's get it going before the SEC tournament. So where do you think the Lady Vols stand right now that they're about 2 weeks away from the tournament?
Yeah, I think you're looking at maybe your hardest stretch of the season coming up. Mississippi State is a decent team. LSU is hot right now. Mm-hmm. They're hot at the right time. So yeah, like you said, you hope to win 3 or 4. Maybe you win 2 or 4, but I think you spend these next couple of weeks just figuring out, because you know they're still kind of figuring out what team they're going to be without Kean Green, their 5-year senior leader. But I think you spend the next couple of weeks just, you know, fine-tuning every last little detail before the postseason. The SC tournament is going to be tough, and, you know, you just can't overlook any of these games, I guess. And you treat them all like they're a championship, and you got to come in and start playing your best basketball now, because after this, there's no time to readjust. Kind of, it's every team's going to be coming at you with their best. So
yeah, meaningful games all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we'll have full coverage of that big week for Lady Vols at etdailybeacon.com. On our way out, I do want to talk about Tennessee's baseball team. Their season is starting up later this week. Friday, they host Georgia Southern for 3 games. Baseball team, obviously, College World Series run last year, first time since 2005. They had a great team, but they lost a lot of those players last year. MLB draft and eligibility, graduation, whatever. Their whole starting infield is basically gone. They've got Luke Lipschias, and that's about it. Evan Russell moves to catcher, so we'll see if that's kind of a patchwork in my opinion. We'll see how it turns out. Tony Vitello has talked some good things about Evan Russell, the catcher. It remains to be seen if it's going to translate in the game, but it was kind of this year. Pitching is kind of going to lead the Vols. You know, their offense got questions, but they got a good pitching rotation. Well, that's taken a hit the last couple of weeks. Blade Tidwell, who is preseason All-American, perfect game All-American, college baseball, newspaper All-American. We can go down the list. He's out indefinitely with shoulder soreness. Tony Vitello does expect him to be back at some point this season, but it's kind of, well, when's that going to happen? it could be midway through the year by the time he comes back and gets ramped up. And then add Seth Halverson transfer over. He's supposed to be a big arm behind Tidwell. Well, now he's out too. He fractured his arm. So just a lot of questions around the Vols right now, and specifically, their pitching staff and what's it going to look like right now.
Yeah, who do you think they'd turn to? I mean, who's the guy?
Well, they picked up Chase Dollander. He was from Georgia Southern, and so it's funny that he's going to kick off.
Game.
Yeah, right.
Revenge game. Start a season.
Yeah. So we saw him last year when the Vols were at Georgia Southern. Again, he's only a sophomore, so he's kind of inexperienced. Just had the 1 year, but he's kind of their most bona fide starter right now. I would say, just by necessity, he's going to start. Obviously, Camden Sewell is another guy. He was mostly out of the bullpen last year, but he made some starts. I think about the SEC tournament game. I believe it was against Florida. Had a great game there. Just that was at the point in the tournament. Well, the Vols are out of options. We've pitched everybody else. Camden, you get the ball and just go do what you can. I think he proved that last year through, all those kind of spot starts and little long relief outings. So he'll probably be a guy the Vols turn to too. But I do think it was interesting the other day when Tony Vitello met with the media. He said sometimes we might be looking for 9 outs more than we are from 9 innings out of a starter. So the Vols, they might, use an opener. Just, some guy have 3 innings, maybe 2 or 3 innings. If you can get it over just a couple earned runs and get it to the bullpen, that's fine, because Tennessee's bullpen is definitely more experienced now at this point than their starters for sure.
What do you think we're going to look like just hitting wise? Because I know most of the outfield is coming back. You got Jordan back, you got Gilbert coming back, but I mean, who's going to be the guy that can, I don't know, really carry it for the infield? I guess. So I mean, it's like you said earlier, it's a completely new rotation, completely new lineup.
Right. I do think the outfield will be fine. As you mentioned, Jordan Beck, Drew Gilbert, they'll be rock steady in the outfield all year. I think Kyle Booker is probably the most likely guy to fill in maybe left field. From where Evan Russell moved. I believe he's a sophomore. He hasn't played much, just had a kind of a small role off the bench last year. Yeah, sophomore. But, he's a good prospect. He'll be in there. I think he'll step up and make that leap in the outfield this year. But as far as the infield concerned, I'm looking to their one returning starter that's in the same position, and that's Luke Lipschias at first base. He was so consistent last year. He started 60-plus games. Just a solid power bat. He's going to get on base a lot. Takes his walks and grinds out at bats. So you're looking for him. I think 6-year senior too. Like he's the one returning guy. He's going to have to step up and lead the infield. That's kind of young and still has their questions too. But again, all that's this weekend. Georgia Southern. We'll have coverage of that. UT Daily Beacon. We'll have plenty of baseball stories too, and that spring paper I mentioned earlier. So plug that again, pick it up, read it. It'll be good. We got a lot of coverage for all the sports, men's and women's, tennis, softball. They picked up a couple wins over the weekend too at a tournament. They went undefeated, so they're looking good right now. So a lot's happening here, spring sports at Tennessee. So be sure to check that out. You guys have anything else before we go? I'm good.
I think it'd be fun to touch on the softball team just a little bit. I don't know a huge amount about them, but
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much.
But I mean, they got some returning people. They got Amanda Ayala. They got Ashley Rogers, obviously one of the better pitchers in the nation when it comes down to it. And we got great writers on that this season, so that'll be a lot of fun to keep in touch with how Karen Weekly's going to be able to do it solo, I guess, without Ralph.
That's big.
Yeah, and I'll say as a softball beat writer last year, this was a really good team last year, just maybe a little inexperienced. So I think this will be a fun year for them. They've got, like you said, they've got a lot of great players. They've got last year they had a lot of freshmen and sophomores that were stepping up. So it'll be a fun year, and to kind of watch how the season unfolds. They had started to have a decent postseason run last year, so.
Yeah, it's really the opposite of the baseball team, weirdly enough, because they were really, really talented, and they just kind of fell short. Mm-hmm. And the baseball team, obviously, they were really talented, and they just kept going. But they've also lost a lot of people, like you said. I mean, like we've gone over. But softball teams kept just about everybody, and they've still got that talent. They just kind of, like you said, Andrew, they got to get that experience right. They got to just have the experience, I guess, to be able to just carry it through to beat the really good teams, because they kind of struggled at the end versus Alabama last year. I know they had a chance to win the SEC, against Alabama, and they couldn't quite do it, and then they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament with a really, really good team. I mean, when you've got a pitcher like Ashley Rogers who's just throwing heat back to back to back, I mean, she never wavered in that either. That was what was so incredible about watching her, and it'll be really interesting to see if she'll be able to carry that over to this season. But big things coming for the softball team. Big things coming for spring sports just overall.
Yeah, I know one name that stuck out for me softball over the weekend was Erin Edmondson. She was a transfer pitcher from Texas Tech. Her first start of the year, she was great. 6 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts. So she'll complement somebody. I don't know, again, I'm not as familiar with softball, but I think last year's kind of Rogers, and that was it on the mound. So it'll be nice for Tennessee to have, at least 2 really good options.
That was a major problem last season.
I believe her 2 relievers were freshmen.
Yeah, that was the entire thing, is when Ashley Rogers wasn't on the mound, what do you do?
Yeah.
And she was their ace by the definition of the word, because I'm blanking on the names right now, but they were good. I'm not saying they're bad by any means, but when it came down to it, they just could not match the production, and they couldn't really even come close. So whenever she wasn't on the mound, you're like, they could lose to anybody, they could beat anybody. It just kind of was a thing of getting their bats hot at the right time, and if they weren't, they were going to lose. It was just simple as that. They could maybe win some rock fights with Rogers on the mound, but they didn't have quite enough hitting to be able to overcome the pitching walls when Rogers wasn't out there.
Again, we'll have full coverage of everything, utdailybeacon.com, so be sure to check it out there. One last plug for our spring sports preview, or not preview.
Kind of preview. I
For
guess
some.
look ahead.
For some.
Yeah.
So check that out. But that's going to do it for this episode. Post Super Bowl. It's I don't know where I'm going with this. Man, I'm not good at the outros. Yeah,
no more football.
It's just like the football game. The ending was a little short, but it's okay. We got through it.
Hey, there you go. Let's end on that then. I'll see you next time.
There we go. Yeah.